Have you ever had any feeling of joy, as if you were on top of the world and no one could stop you? If you are human, your answer should be yes. On March 11th of 2023, this was the feeling I had. Winning the basketball state championship for the second year in a row was a dream come true for me that showed how hard work, patience, and determination pays off. In November of 2022, I was going to sleep that night, worried about the next day, about the first practice, the first run, the first scrimmage. I didn't want to get up and stay in bed the whole day. The next day, I finished school on a Monday and walked from my sixth period class to the locker room to change out for our first practice of the year. Running out of that locker room into the gym felt like I had no break from basketball, and it was just back to normal. Before anybody asks if I even like basketball, I've played since I was 3 years old and have always enjoyed the game. However, when high school hit, it led to many hard-fought practices that were extremely hard mentally and physically. At the end of my junior year, we won state and I was thrilled. However, I didn't feel a sense of accomplishment after. I worked my butt off all season and barely played at all. Back to 2022. When I got onto the court, I felt a different sense of basketball. I knew that when I was running on the court, that this was my team for my senior year. That first practice felt as if I was still playing for my junior year, and I had no off season. However, I did not have that same feeling. I was ready to practice and I was ready to play. I felt that joy I did 14 years ago when I first picked up the basketball at the age of 3 years old. We had our first game a week later. This year, I knew what to expect and how to prepare for games mentally and physically. I knew what the right eating plans were that would help my body for practices and games. Even though I wasn't depressed playing basketball anymore, I didn't have the same love for it I once did. When March of 2023 hit, it was time for the state tournament. My final few games of basketball. I was looking forward to this week for a couple of reasons. I was missing playing baseball and wanted to get back onto the field. I couldn't wait to play at the Pit, the UNM basketball stadium, and I was feeling mentally and physically drained. Even though I was excited for it to end, I wanted my basketball career to end with a bang. Our first game was March 4th against Capitol High School. Luckily, because we were such a high seed, we blew through them, winning our first game by 28. The quarterfinal match was against Atrisco Heritage. This would be our third time playing them this season. We beat them the first 2 times, but in the second game, we were losing the whole game and probably should have lost. This game was extremely close. However, we pulled away towards the end and were able to close this first game in the Pit with a win. Our next game was against Oregon Mountain. It would be our second game against them. We won our first game against them. However, this would not be the same team that we played earlier in the season. This game was very close and intense. We were losing by 1 point with 15 seconds. However, our team never gives up. We came back and took the lead with 8 seconds left and won the game with a score of 48-46. Winning against Oregon Mountain punched our ticket to the championship against Sandia High School. The night before, I slept horrible. I got only 5 hours of sleep. This was the first time I wasn't physically prepared for the game. It would also be our 4th time playing Sandia. We had beaten them all 3 times before, but I was worried this would be the one time we'd lose to them in the biggest game of the year. The game started off very shaky. They started off to a 13-6 lead in the first quarter. I wasn't playing very well due to the lack of sleep I had the night before. But like I said earlier, our team never gives up. By halftime, we cut the score down to 6 points. By the end of the third quarter, it was just a 3-point lead. We were approaching the final 8 minutes of the season, and I was feeling very confident that we were going to finish the season with a win. In the fourth quarter, the game was tied at 25 with 5 minutes left. We just got the ball back during this possession. We threw the ball into our big man. He kicked it. He got double teamed, kicked it back out to me, and I hit a three to put us up 28-25. The shot gave me a huge rush of adrenaline and had me jogging back down the court, not even knowing how to feel. 4.5 minutes later, the final buzzer went off, and we were crowned as back-to-back state champions. I threw the basketball into the air with straight joy. All that hard work from previous practices and games had finally felt like they paid off. I felt a sense of accomplishment. I played most of the games during the season. I knew this championship was well earned. Even though this was my last season ever of basketball, I went out on top, feeling like I was on top of the world. I couldn't believe I could finally rest. I felt at peace that I would be able to move on to the next chapter of my life, feeling on top of the basketball world and leaving the sport as a happy man.